Welcome to Live, Let Thrive, a podcast about the Airbnb life, the share economy, and everything in between. Here are your hosts, Micah and Steve.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to another exciting episode of Live, Let Thrive. I am your host, Stevie Stacks, coming at you from Fort Worth, Texas, and this is your favorite short-term, mid-term, long-term rental podcast in the world. And we have a special guest today. Who is that special guest, you ask? Well, it is a Miss Erin Helle. Do you say it, Erin Helle?
Helle.
Helle, okay. She's going to give us hell today, for sure. Well, Erin is a self-made millionaire who achieved financial freedom through real estate investing in less than 4 years. To date, she has helped over 600 other investors to build cash-flowing real estate portfolios. A U.S. Army veteran, thank you for your service. Erin understands what it's like to work for the man and be limited by a schedule and fixed income. Erin created a system to allow her to live a life by design and now has the time and resources to give back and focus on her family. She is a realtor at eXp Realty and has a passion about growing her team of agents and mentoring them to build the business of their dreams. She currently has 13 agents with plans to continue for growth. Erin has a real estate portfolio that includes 95 rental properties. She's going to get that to 100 soon. Erin's courses and conferences empower investors to dream big and ruthlessly pursue their goals. She has a personal goal of creating a million millionaires. Welcome to the show, Erin.
Thank you so much.
That was a mouthful.
Yeah, that was a lot.
Man, where do I start with all this stuff? I mean, first of all, you mentioned on your bio because you I guess you did short-term rentals before, but you stepped out of that and you're just doing long-term rentals. What caused that shift?
Yeah, it was just honestly, it does not align with my why. We thought that it did. We thought that we wanted to own properties in places we would want to travel to. But what we kind of learned was we would rather explore a new place than feel obligated to keep going back to the same place over and over again, which is kind of what was happening with us with the short-term rentals. And then an even bigger thing was just how hands-on short-term rentals were or are. And even with professional, full service property management, we still had to be involved a lot more often than certainly a lot more than we do with our long-term rentals or even like our midterm, what I call corporate rentals. So it just ultimately did not align and just wasn't worth what we were putting into it. And we just found that it kind of hindered us from living the life that we wanted and continuing to scale.
And that's the key word right there is scale, right?
Yep.
Because I mean, you get a whole bunch, especially I don't know how many you had, but if you had 95 rentals, I don't know what percentage that was of short-term rentals, but man, they are time consuming,
Yeah.
and yeah, and you're doing rental. It's just so many turnovers, so many different people in and out. Of course, and we talk about it, a lot on this show, short-term rentals, and that's what we do. But yeah, I mean, if your goal is to maximize every single penny out of every single property, maybe you should do that, go that route. And but it's going to be a lot of time that you're going to be pouring into these things. A lot of design. You got to refresh the design every year, every couple years. I mean, there's so much to it. Instead of just four walls and a roof, empty house, and let's lock someone in for 1 or 2 years and on to the next one.
Yep, exactly. And to give you a picture of the numbers, we only ever owned 4 short-term rentals at one time. So at one point we owned over 100 units. So 4% of our portfolio, short-term rentals, but without a doubt, those 4 took more time than the other 96. And that was the deciding factor for us.
Yeah, that's like the 80-20 rule, but the 496 rule, right?
Yep.
Man, that's crazy. But so you were in the U.S. Army. You're working for the man, as you say, right?
The actual man, the man of the man, I guess.
The man of the man. And so what drove you into starting your real estate journey?
Yeah, that's a loaded question because I I loved the military and I was good at it. And my husband is still active duty. We were dual military, which is what they call people who are married and both serving. And we had our first daughter, and we were both set to deploy when she turned 6 months old, or when she would have been 6 months old. And it just wasn't a life that we wanted. So even though I would have been able to get out of that deployment, I would have had to move the following summer, which would have put us geographically separated for 3+ years with a newborn baby. And we also wanted to have another baby. We have 2 girls now. So, the Army just didn't really, obviously, like lifestyle is a big thing for us. And they just didn't allow us to have any kind of a lifestyle like we wanted. So I got out really honestly without much choice and slowly got into real estate, sort of trepidatiously at first, and started pursuing a lot of things that I'm no longer pursuing, like flipping houses, things that took a lot more time and energy and effort. And really, finally, a couple years in, we're 6 years in now, and I feel like we finally have our portfolio where we want it, and we're able to just do whatever we want and travel and not be limited to any specific place. So, yeah, a very long-winded answer to your question, but yeah, the Army just did not make it conducive to start a family and live a life that we liked. And I'm so grateful that it played out the way that it did, because I could still be in the military right now and our net worth would probably be about $200,000 as opposed to 2.1 million. So,
Mm, wow. I mean, you mentioned something else there. You even tried flipping houses, right?
yep.
And of course, if you can hit a few home runs with that, but it's another time-consuming thing, right? With so many variables that could go wrong.
So true, right? Like I feel like I would do like 4 in a row and they'd be great. And then one would be a freaking disaster. And all of my profit was out the window. And I think I made good money, but I didn't grow my wealth. And once I realized that that's what the goal was, flipping just wasn't going to accomplish that.
Mm, I like that. So you terminate the what is it called? The pinch points or the pain points in your lifestyle. Like you said, it might be profitable, but it's not conducive to what you're going for. And I love that so much. Because yes, I mean, in my own journey, I've got up to like right now I'm at around 50 properties that are short-term rentals, right? And that's oh my God. But but I always told myself, and I started with a partner and everything, and we just started growing, and all of a sudden more people started asking us to manage for them their properties. We had our own ones that we owned, arbitrage, and then we had other people started taking on management, and it started growing and growing and growing. But I was like, man, my whole goal in life, and which I started before I started this like mid-term, short-term rental business, started going on a tangent about me, but was I'm gonna buy me a house every single year, and then maybe get to a point where I buy a couple a year and just plug them in, put some renters in there, make them nice. And that was my plan, easy, soft, easy peasy. But I just got distracted and started trying to accumulate everything. And then I started looking on
Yep.
Instagram and trying to, oh, that person has 100 units. I got to get to 100 units. Oh, that person's doing this. I gotta put a golf course at my places. I was like, wait a minute. Do I want to be freaking stressed out, like, you know, or the rest of my life, or do I want to like a chill, easy life that have a few rentals that pay for my lifestyle? That's oh
Yeah.
man, this is refreshing.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And I learned this at a women's conference, a women's investor conference. I've had to kind of go out of my way to find women who are doing this because our motivations tend to be really, really different. And the industry is all about doors, right? And everyone gets up and introduces themselves by the number of doors. And I remember this lady, she's actually my sponsor at EXP, and her name is Shelby. And she was like,
Shelby
for,
Johnson.
yes,
Ah,
yeah.
yeah, she's been on the show. We love Shelby.
Yeah, she's awesome. And so she was like, forget number of doors. Like, why are we measuring ourselves by number of doors? And that was really eye-opening for me because it's true, right? Like one door could make you $100. So you would need 10 of them to make $1,000 a month. So it's just kind of it's just this competition thing. And your your business and the quality of your business has nothing to do with the number of doors. So I hope that we get away from that. I'm not sure if we are, but that is really interesting. And I hate almost when people say, they ask number of doors and it's in my bio and stuff like that. And it does show like a certain amount of credibility, but there's a lot of ways to get to those doors, right? You could put $10,000 into a syndication that has 100 units and you could say you own 100 doors and you wouldn't be lying. Or you could own 100 single family homes outright. And those two numbers are very, very different.
Right. So if I owned 10 houses, but every house that I owned had at least 10 doors inside them, I own 100 doors, right?
There you go.
There's my hack to brag on Instagram. So yeah, you mentioned that. I mean, it's in your bio. You have, 95 doors. Is that your goal to maintain this many houses, or are you gonna try to do something like sell off some and buy a small apartment complex, or what's in your cards?
Yeah, so right now we're just offloading the ones that aren't performing. And what we do after that, honestly, I have no idea. But we will look for the most passive thing we can find, which probably means sticking to our like 3 main markets where we have a really good team and it can be hands off for us.
Now, do y'all do things like you're saying offload? Do y'all do things like you sell them to people, maybe rent to own or own or finance in a way where you're getting passive income and they're able to buy it that way instead of just, selling it through a bank or whatever?
Well, so we have one on the market right now and we have a mortgage on it. So we don't have a lot of flexibility there. But the ultimate goal is to own all these properties until the mortgages are paid off and then seller finance our entire portfolio so that we continue, hopefully by then we'll be making even more money than we make now and not have any responsibility to be a landlord. We just collect that debt payment every month. So that is the long-term goal. I've never
Subject
done
to, right? The subject to, you can do it while you have a mortgage.
Yeah, you could do subject to. The reason we've not done subject to is because the homes that we own with that have a good deal of equity and have a really good interest rate are VA loans. So those are a little bit more complicated because you have to get somebody to assume the loan or you don't get back your entitlement, your VA entitlement. So you can't like reuse that loan. So we haven't done that. In a lot of our hard money loans, the rates are not that great. They wouldn't be that compelling for somebody to want to buy those. And to me, I wouldn't do that strategy unless I could get a premium on them or had trouble selling them. So we've had those as like a backup plan, but we've never had to use them. But honestly, I've only sold a couple of properties in my entire, in 6 years, we've sold those 4 short-term rentals, which 3 of them did really well. One of them we ended up selling for exactly what we paid for it. And we would do it again just because it wasn't worth it. Our biggest issue with that one was the HOA. The HOA went on a power trip and was canceling reservations. They would find a reason for your paperwork to not be in order or the guests to not have done something they were allegedly supposed to do. And it was criminal, honestly. And they're actually going through copious amounts of lawsuits because of it. But until somebody puts a stop to their activity, they're still able to do it. So anyway, those are all really, really great strategies and strategies I've used to purchase, but never used to sell.
Okay. And so, okay, how did you get up to 95? I mean, how did you get the money to buy all these things? That's what, people are going to say. But yeah, how did you, and you mentioned something, you mentioned VA loans. So go ahead and tell us how you were able to scale up to 95 properties.
Yeah. So our very, very first unit was a new construction single family home that we put 20% down on. So it was like a $220,000 purchase. By the time we paid all the closing costs and the fees, we were like almost 60,000 into it. And yeah, I was blown away because that was like my entire savings. And we were pregnant with our second child. And I was like, I don't understand how you're supposed to scale this. Like we just bought 1 door and there's nothing left, and we're making $300 a month. It's going to take 175 million years to make enough money for our next down payment. And so I didn't really get it. And so I started, really listening to the podcast and getting tied into all this creative stuff, right? Everyone talks about creative financing. And so I started looking for a flip I could do, but it essentially had to be seller financed because I didn't have any money. We sold my husband deployed, so I sold my car while he was gone because we needed to get a bigger car with our second child. So I drove his truck while he was gone, and I sold my car for 25 grand. So I had $25,000 to play with to flip an entire house. So what I did was I found a home that cost 25 grand. And I offered $12,000 down, seller financed the rest. So my note was like $230 a month, right? It's like nothing. And then I had the rest of that money, like another $12,000, $13,000 to flip this entire like 800 square foot house. So not a big budget, didn't have any clue what I was doing. I didn't know how hard it was going to be to get contractors to show up and all that. So I was also super pregnant, but because I found like this holy grail that I'd been looking for like a year, I ended up buying it, and me and my dad flipped it, did so much of the work on our own. Like I was literally laying floors, 8 months pregnant, and sold that house for $58,000. So it was all into it for like 25, turned it into 58. I ended up doubling my money essentially by the time I paid the realtor and stuff. And so then that allowed me to get into the next one, which I bought a somewhat distressed triplex, but I was able to get into it with really favorable long-term financing. So at that point, I kind of realized the power in finding something a little bit distressed that I could get a good loan on and not have to like refinance it and pay all the fees. So that kind of became my model. And then I also discovered that you could self-direct your IRA. So I purchased a duplex in my IRA that was making me more per month than my previous mutual funds were making me in a year.
Oh.
Yeah. So that was like literally made like $958 the year before. And I was netting like $1,140 a month.
And it's tax free.
Tax free. Yep. So that was super eye-opening. And then the first like big purchase, we ended up selling our house. So the Army moved us from Tennessee to California, and we decided to sell our house. It would have made a great rental, but they were building a battery plant, and there was going to be like a certain amount of lead emitted that they were like, it's a safe level of lead. And we're like, yeah, we don't really think there's such thing as a safe level of lead. And it was a big house, right? We knew a family would live in there, and we're like, we don't want our kids playing in the dirt. So we don't want another family doing that either. So we decided to sell it. And we took the proceeds from that, which was about 120 grand. And then I had a little bit in savings, and we bought a 10 unit. So we bought a property, 10 unit. It was 10 single family homes on one plot of land. And it was $518,000. We got a commercial bank loan on it. And when the rates went way down during COVID a little bit later, I ended up like restructuring that loan. So I didn't really do anything but pay for an appraisal. My initial interest rate was 5.75. I got it down to 5%. But because the property had appreciated, I pulled out like 100,000 in cash, and then I redid all the roofs and then slowly started flipping the interior. So I've made that property go from, we purchased it for 518, and the mortgage on it is probably like 340 at this point, and it's worth over $1 million. So that's just what one property that we sold one door to get us 10 units, and that made us $500,000 in net worth in just a couple of years. So it just kind of scaled. And then we kind of discovered syndications. So we've started to invest. We probably like 50 or so of our units are in syndications. So we do not own them outright, and a lot of them are leveraged as well. We just, at this point, like whenever we find a good opportunity, we just see if we want to sell something to take advantage of it, or, we figure out how to find the money to do it. But yeah, it's just like you said, it's about scaling.
It's addicting, ain't it? Real estate.
It's addicting. Absolutely. It really is.
How many hours of Zillow do you look at
I know. That's what I tell people. I'm like, buy your first unit, just buy your first unit. The percentage of landlords that own one door is like 4% because everyone buys, every landlord has multiple units.
That is true. I never thought about that. That's crazy. Cause yeah, how I got my start, I was doing the house hacking thing. I was hopping from house to house until I got to around 4 houses, and then we happened to find a house we loved, and so I was like, we can't hop out of this one. So then I had to start doing the 20% thing, and then learned about creative financing, bought one owner financing. Not Man, it was funny. It was a little condo, but it did the owner financing thing, and I think I at the closing table I was out like a couple $100 to buy
Amazing.
it.
I know. It's amazing. Good for you.
There's no excuses, man. And I love so I noticed a theme. You look at properties that need some work and to get a better deal, right?
Yeah, I like some work. I don't like the full,
Oh,
borderline
good
tear
job.
down. Yeah. I like something you can get long-term financing on and
Just
then just slowly improve it. Force
enough.
that appreciation and take advantage of the natural appreciation.
I like that. I like that. Just enough to keep the regular buyers away, right? Just to keep
Yeah,
the turnkey buyers away. Just enough
that's true.
ugliness.
Yeah, and during COVID, everyone was like, "How are you still buying? How are you still finding your deals?" All of my deals were on the MLS. All of them. People were like, "I don't get it. How are you finding them? Like, what's your secret sauce?" I'm like, Zillow.
Look at the ugliest ones, and there you go.
Yep.
But it's so funny because so many people get scared of like here in North Texas is the foundation. People are afraid of, there's a lot of foundation issues because of the ground, of course. And um and so they'll say something like, "Oh, I saw this nice house, but I saw that it had foundation issues." I'm like, "Okay, did you get a quote?" No.
Right.
I was like, it could be $5,000 could fix it,
Right.
Could be 20, could
12,000.
be 20,000, but you don't know
But
until
you're
you
getting 100 grand in equity. It sounds like a no-brainer to me. I
but it just
agree.
scares them away.
There's something about foundations is terrifying. We're looking at properties here locally. And I was going through with this guy who was like, "Oh, this is a total tear down." And we go in and the foundation guy is like, "It needs a new beam here for 12 grand. It needs a new beam here for 14 grand." And I was like, "So you want to tear this whole thing down and rebuild for $1 million when you could put 25,000 into it and have a brand new foundation?" And he's like, "Well, when you say it like that," I'm like, that's the reality.
When you use logic,
Yeah.
um, and roofs too, and a lot of times, when there's a house with a bad roof, when you're in the buying process, they can actually file a claim with their insurance, get it fixed before they even sell it to you. It's going to cost $0 to fix the roof.
So true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, roofs are really straightforward.
Yeah, yeah. And then they'll even you can even work it in the contract that they pay for the foundation repair too out of it's so much things you can
Yeah,
do.
so many ways you can do that, and so many ways you can frame it. You can make the seller feel like they're in charge too. You can say, "Look, you can leave the money in escrow. You can get it done before we close, or you can just knock some money off the purchase price so that I can handle it afterward." Like, let them choose what makes the most sense for them, probably from a tax perspective. But that's always been really like a good strategy for me.
That was like the power of three right there. You mentioned give them three choices.
Yeah, let them feel like they're in charge.
You read the book, Never Split the Difference.
Yep.
Oh, so good. So good. Oh my goodness. But yeah, he mentions that. Yeah, you give them the choices and act like you said, act like they're in charge, right?
Yep.
And this guy, dealt with saving people from hostage situations and stuff. So buying a house is like no big deal, right?
Yeah.
But I did notice you have a ton of books behind you. So is reading like a huge part of your life?
It is. I for the first like probably 3 years in business, all I did was read business books. I have like every single book about house flipping and building wealth and then business development. And then I kind of like burned out from that and I got back into reading novels. So I probably read like a book a week, I would say. I love to read.
That's funny because like same thing with me, like I loved when podcasts started coming out, and of course I have my own podcast, but I just was like a podcast junkie with all the business ones, all the real estate ones, and all this stuff. But you just got burned out after a while. Okay, they bought a house, they paid this much, and blah blah blah. Not anybody's listening right now thinks that about my show, but I'm just saying
No, of course not.
gotta cleanse the palate every now and then, and I like listening to all kinds of different shows about self-improvement or sports or whatever. It just there's so much more to life than just real estate. But I love real estate a lot. I do.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm kind of on like a mental health kick right now, I think, because I every year in January I kind of reset for the year and I set all these huge goals and then I get completely overwhelmed and then I have to like reset and put everything back in perspective, reprioritize. So that's where I'm at right now. And then typically like I get my bearings around like the summertime and get all the stuff done by the end of the year and then repeat the cycle every year.
That's funny. So does the background in the military, has that helped you like with your investing journey too?
I would say like the the network piece of it has been awesome. Like the military veteran network is absolutely amazing. I'm a West Point grad, so like the service academy network is really awesome too. And then I think the focus on systems has been really, really beneficial to again, my ability to scale.
Nice, nice. Now, when you do grow to a certain point, I mean, like I said, 95 doors, or you said 50 of those are syndications, so you really don't have to do too much in those, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, but it's still, and then you got 50 other doors yourself, so that's still a lot. So, with all that, was there moments like let's say accounting? Did you outgrow QuickBooks? Did you have to find a higher level CPA? What did you do when you started growing like a lot?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yes, I have like leveled up twice now with accounting, with CPAs. I just hired a bigger firm. So first year I did it myself and quickly learned that wasn't sustainable. And then also learned that there's so many loopholes and tax benefits that it didn't make sense for me to do it myself. So then I used sort of an individual and he was really good for me at the time, but I think I've gotten a little bit too complicated. So I hired a big firm, which is pretty expensive, but they will find me more money than they'll cost me. And they're also just really big on strategy and structure, and they're having me set up things a little bit differently. Everyone has their opinions, and then also things are changing constantly. So you kind of have to stay up with that. So yeah, that's how it worked with accounting. I would tell people though, don't wait until you need it. Like, don't tell yourself, I need to do this myself until I outgrow it, because that's the one thing that's going to prevent you from being able to scale. Like, if you're spending hours every single week accounting, then you're not finding the deals. So I would tell people like use a realtor, use a wholesaler. If you're trying to be an investor, if you're trying to grow your portfolio, don't wholesale because you think it's going to save you money, because the amount of time you're going to spend wholesaling, you're just going to turn into a wholesaler, not an investor. So I'm really big into my team. And right now this week I'm doing taxes. I actually time blocked 30 minutes every day to gather all my tax documents, but I actually almost got it done all today. Today's Monday. So because I have all my properties are professionally managed, so they send me a report every single month and I just put them in the appropriate folder. And then at the end of the year, they send me my 1098, the mortgage companies, or they send me my 1099, the mortgage companies send me the 1098. I get my, everything comes to me and I organize it as I get it. And then I just uploaded it today to the portal. Took 30 minutes. But if you're not organized and you're not doing your accounting, you're not staying on top of it, this could be like the worst time of the year for any business owner. So I think that's what it really comes down to is priorities and organization, and sort of cutting out all the extra stuff. There's a lot of things that we tell ourselves we need to do that don't contribute to the bottom line, don't have any income producing anything, don't even support an income producing activity. And we do it because we want to feel productive in a lot of ways. And I've really learned to cut all that stuff off.
The low-hanging fruit, right?
Yep.
So do you have like a full-time bookkeeper that helps you?
I don't. So my strategy is that every single Friday I spend about 20 minutes accounting. And it only takes 20 minutes because I remember every single transaction because it's only been, 5, 7 days. If I do it monthly, instead of taking, 80 minutes, like 20 minutes times 4, it ends up taking me 3 hours because I have to go track down every single transaction, remind myself, what was this check for? What was this? What did I swipe my card for? What property was this for? But if you do it every week and it's fresh in your brain, it just takes a couple minutes. And then once a month, I do all of my like net worth tracking and my goal setting and make sure that I'm on track personally and professionally. And that takes a little bit longer, but it's very fulfilling for me. So the reason I haven't really outsourced that part is because I enjoy it and I like to track my money and see it grow. And it kind of fills my bucket. A lot of people, it definitely drains them. So those people should totally hire a bookkeeper, but it doesn't take a lot of time for me. It'd probably take a lot more time for me to outsource it. And then I would be checking on it all the time anyway. So
It brings you joy. It brings you
yeah,
joy.
yeah, I
And
enjoy it.
that is cool. It reminds you, hey, this is what I'm doing it for, right?
Exactly. Yep. And I mean, you see, like, I didn't feel like I did a lot this month. I think I saved like $2,000, but my net worth went up $30,000 in a month just because of all the mortgages that are being paid down by the tenants and the properties are appreciating. And it's just really, really powerful to see those numbers play out.
Yeah, it keeps you motivated too.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, do you do anything like, have you heard of the profit first method? We bring that up on the show. You do
I
anything like
have
that?
refreshed my memory though. I can't
So
remember quite.
that's the one with you got the buckets. You got the different buckets, so which means you open up like a whole bunch of different bank accounts, right? And then one of them, is a percentage goes to your tax bucket, percentage goes to
Yep.
your, pay yourself bucket. The other one goes to debt, goes to whatever, and just it's just I know my buddy Micah, he would talk about profit first. So I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool method.
Yeah. It is cool. And there's another method. There's the shred method. Have you heard of that one? They it's all about it's like you go after your highest interest mortgage and you pull out a HELOC, home equity line of credit, which is balanced like every single day. And you put that, like let's say you have a $30,000 HELOC. You put that toward your highest interest mortgage rate or just your home if you own you're just you just own your home. And then you like pay off your HELOC as quickly as you can. And then you repeat that until your mortgage is paid down. So people are like paying off 30-year mortgages in 7 years.
Mm.
So it's a super cool method. But I think it ultimately just comes down to what your strengths are. Like for me, I'm doing those things, but I don't have to set up a system of multiple bank accounts to do it just because of the way that I track. And I use good old fashioned Excel. I find that to be the easiest, most user friendly thing because I can't stand it when you like get all situated in an app and you finally got it working and you get it and then they upgrade it and you're like, what the heck just happened? And you have to like relearn it. And I feel like people listening to me are probably like, oh, this lady's 65. No, I'm 37 years old. I struggle like crazy with technology. But I just have no patience for that. So I do it all in Excel. I do all of my like accounting with my calculator on my phone, like nothing sophisticated about it. But if you're not setting aside the right amount of money to pay your taxes or you're not paying down your mortgages and that's your goal, then you totally should invest in those methods and focus on those methods.
Yeah, it helps. It helps. Some people really need that. I'm some
Yeah.
people. But it's funny that you said about the apps because um So in my business, my ex-partner in the business, he loved those apps. We try on a new one every few months, and and I'd be like, dude, okay, how do I need to find a door code for, oh, you just go through here, go to this, and there's the door codes. I'm like, yes, but it's like 4 5 steps. To me, I was
Yeah,
like, and then it's a new thing, and I like, maybe I didn't put forth enough effort, but every time it was something that was just a little bit complicated, it would just send me into a blue ocean. But I keep everything in my notes on my phone. And that's what
same. And then you just search. That's exactly what I
you
do.
just
I
hit
just
search.
search for it.
I have
I agree with
each
you.
house has its own notes and has all its
Yep.
stuff. I'm like, you ask me something, I get it to you in like 2 seconds. I can get it to you.
Yeah, and it's in some cloud somewhere, so it's not going anywhere.
It's on my computer when I fire it up. It's on my phone. It's everywhere. I love it.
Yep,
But I mean that works for my brain. If someone can,
same.
do something with Notion or whatever the other ones are, Slack, more power to them. It helps them, and they know how to do that stuff. I just to me, I'm running the company, and I put the people in place that know how to do those things, and if
Yeah,
and I make it, and I'll tell my lead, okay, make it where I can find it easy. If you're gonna do something, that's
yeah,
fine, but make it, put me some cheater notes or
yeah,
something easy, and I can
yeah.
find, because I'm not gonna go searching through 5 or 6 or 7 different clicks to find something. My brain
Yeah.
my brain will
And
go
I think
crazy.
that's like business 101. It's like don't get sidetracked. And this applies to these small little tasks, but also applies to like bigger opportunities. And I think like the theme of my business ventures has been saying no and staying on track, because you could spend hours and hours and hours getting all these apps and setting everything up. Or you could just pull out your calculator and you could make sure that you're saving the right amount of money, right? It might take a little bit, a couple more minutes as opposed to the couple of hours it takes you. And then the app goes out of business or whatever, like Mint did recently,
Oh, geez.
then you're back to square one. So but again, like you said, it comes down to figuring out what works for you,
Mhm.
which can be hard in this world of podcasts. Like we hear these people come on, they're like, oh, this is the best thing ever. And you feel like you got to do it because it sounds like everyone's doing it. And then you spend a ton of time doing it and you realize, well, that just took away a bunch of time that I could have been working on my goals.
Mm, that is so true. The shiny object syndrome, as they say.
Yep. Yep.
But it's funny. It reminds me because my lead VA, her name's Princess, and she pretty much runs the show. Of course, I'm the owner of the business, but I gave her a lot of power and showed her what we needed done, and she figured out brilliant ways to accomplish it. That's a cool thing. But but I told her, oh, the accounting. Speaking of accounting, I was like, all right, where am I going to send these receipts when I'm buying something? If I'm buying something for a property or I'm paying somebody or whatever. And then we were using Notion, and you got to click here, go to this and this, and and if you hit the wrong thing, you could erase some data. It was so to me, it was just so frustrating. She made me she dumbed it down for me quite a bit. She made me my own WhatsApp group, just me and her, and I send every receipt just send there. She goes, just send it
Smart.
there, and I'll take care of it, and I'll put it in the
And
right
then it's
place.
there. Yeah. That's smart.
That's what I needed. That's what I needed for my, simple
Yeah.
brain. But so you got into teaching. You teach women, or you teach everybody? What are you doing?
Yeah, everybody. I've actually started to host events. I was doing some one-on-one coaching for a while, but really was limited to how much time I could put toward it in a day, and then realized that I could reach 300 people in one day by hosting an event and then bring in a whole bunch of different people who know a lot more than I do and have a lot more expertise and more experience. And so events sort of took root, and there's nothing like being at an event. Listening to a podcast is awesome and reading a book is awesome, but going to an event where you can meet the author or
Hmm.
meet the podcast host and be in a room with people who are just fired up and ready to go. Like, people that go to events are the ones that are taking action, or the ones that are ready to take action. They're the doers, and they're the people you want to set yourself, put yourself in the same room as them. And the energy is just wild. Like I always come out of those things. I usually go into the event like drained from all the planning. And then I come out of it like super energized and on fire and ready to accomplish the next thing.
Mm. And that's big time events. I haven't really gone to a lot of those, but I've just been so busy myself. You know how this business can grab you, especially you doing all short-term rentals.
Yeah.
But or short-term and midterms just as crazy. But I'll find time to host little meetup groups, once a month or every couple of weeks. And even if it's just a handful of people, man, every time I end up making a connection that leads to something else. It's so
Yeah.
insane. Instead of just listen, like you said, listen to a podcast or reading a book or audiobook, however you digest your stuff. But actually meeting people out there, like-minded people, because I still technically have my day job. I go a couple of days a week, but everybody there, it's a different mindset. Nobody's an investor. There's like maybe one person that has a rental property because they asked me a million questions. They finally got one. They dove in, which is cool. I'm happy.
Yeah.
But no one else. Everybody's just like, this job owes us and they need to pay us more. Blah, 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 all that stuff. They're in the wrong mindset. To
Yeah.
me, I'm like, we got to build the life we want. We can't trust a corporation to build it for us. Whatever. But going out and doing groups and meetups with people that think the same way, that aren't gonna wait for something to happen for them. They're trying to go out and get it, and then they're doing this and doing that, and then it kind of aligns with what you're trying to do, and y'all can work on something together, or they can send you some business your way, or back, or vice versa. Oh man, it's so powerful.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's nothing like it. And it's to be with people who are on your same path and like operating at the same wavelength it's awesome.
Yeah, big time, big time. So when are you writing your book?
I actually had a goal of writing a book last year and I tried and tried and tried and I didn't know what to write about. So maybe it's for some reason I want to write a book, but I'm not putting any pressure on myself. Maybe when my kids are a little older and there's some more space in my brain, I might try again, but I'd rather just read them right now.
Just the title has to be Real Estate is Hell. Helly, Helly.
Yeah,
But I mean, it's so crazy that a lot of people out there, and I've seen it, man. It's you go to Instagram, it's Guru Central, right? Everybody's a guru. They have one property, but I think a lot of them don't even have any properties, but they're gurus and they'll sell you a
I
program and a book and all
know.
that stuff. And all they're doing, a lot of these freaks are doing, is going to ChatGPT and saying, "Hey, write me a book about this," or write me,
No,
it's insane, and it'll write them the.
that's so that is like exactly why I got into events because I'm like, I kept going to these events and it was like, come to our free brunch. And I'd go to some hotel and they'd be like, it would be like 2 hours long. And they'd be like, okay, now you have to come to our 3 day seminar. It's only $200, huge discount. And then you'd go to, and you're like, oh, okay, that must be where they're going to teach me something. That must be where I got to go to learn and meet the people. And then you get there and they're like, okay, now spend $30,000 on this program. And I'm like, what shouldn't I be putting that money into a property? Like, it
Mm,
never made any sense to me.
mm-mm.
But do you know that you can use your IRA to buy those programs?
Oh my God,
That's
really?
legal. I know.
That's
It's like
messed up.
highway robbery. And then they never hear like half of them don't ever hear from them again. And but then they find out like what they purchased was consulting, and I'm doing air quotes, consulting, and there's no way to ever get that money back. It's not like you invested it and you have a tangible asset to show for it. You just
Mm,
gave it to someone, you lined their pocket. They probably moved to another state and there's nothing you can do.
mm. It's terrible. A buddy of mine, um, he he was approaching 60 and he was already on his way. He saved up all his life, he was working in the hotel industry. And I've talked to him on the show about it before. But he wanted to hit a couple, he never done real estate in his life. He wanted to hit a couple home runs before just to pad that retirement on the way out. And he went to one of those seminars, like you said, and paid $30,000 for these guys, and they set him up with their people to go, scout out. Of course, he scouted out houses. They got him under contract, and they had to fix them up. Oh, we got a crew for you too. with a crew wasn't worth the flip. But anyways, everything went wrong because he never done it before, and he was buying these 400 back then. $400,000 for a house was a lot of money back then, and their goal was to sell it. It was in a nice neighborhood in Dallas. They're going to sell it for 800,000. Put 100 or 200 into it and make a couple 100,000, 300,000, 400, whatever profit, and that was their goal. And he ended up losing all his life savings,
Oh,
all his savings was gone, and
that is devastating.
because these two houses, he made every mistake, but there's so many lessons to learn from that. But the first thing was he spent 30,000 to get these guys
Yep.
to he paid guys to rip him off,
Yep.
and they gladly did, and he had no recourse. What's he gonna do? Sue him? I mean, that's what you paid for, right? And so anyway, so yeah, that just reminded me of my good buddy.
Yeah. Such a shame.
Yeah, but I mean, that was back when I was starting my real estate journey, and it made me really think, yeah, to be a little more conservative than I had to be when going in on a deal or something like that, just not go crazy with it and take risks, but don't take crazy risks, right?
Yep.
I never played baseball, but I'm not gonna go in the major leagues and pretend like I can know how to hit two home runs real quick.
Yeah.
So I started off with just the 3-2 cookie cutters and went from there.
That's smart. I mean, but that's what the real deal investors are doing, That's where there's no reason for you to be on the far left and the far right. You don't need those D class properties. You don't need those A plus properties. You need to be right in the middle where there's good rentals and it's easy to sell.
Mm. Yeah, my buddy sends me these multi-million dollar properties around here all the time. He's talking about meeting investors. What are you gonna do with that? Your market is
Yeah.
so small for that. You get you a
Yeah,
1,500, 2,000 square foot 3-2. I mean, those things will always sell like hotcakes. They'll
totally.
always rent like hotcakes. They'll always be in high demand, right?
Yep,
I mean,
exactly.
if you know what you're doing, yeah, climb your way up to flipping mansions. That's cool. But start out, get some reps in.
Yep.
Man, sorry, this is a coffee talking. Uh, so this has been a cool show. I love your enthusiasm for this. 95 doors, 95 units, but it's not about the doors, as you said, right? It's about the lifestyle, the life by design. And go ahead and go into that a little bit more, what you mean by life by design.
Yeah. I mean, it's about being able to do the things that you want to with your time. And that looks different for everybody. But for me, I have a 5-year-old and an almost 8-year-old. And that means I get to be there every day when they walk home from school and I get to do their after school activities and travel. That's a big thing for us is being able to travel and not having to say no to opportunities, whenever we can all get the time off. We're almost always going somewhere and I don't want to say money is no object, but money doesn't restrict us. We might be limited to certain hotels or something, but it doesn't restrict us. And the other big thing, the other really cool thing is being able to give back and have influence and a power that we didn't have before when we were hardly able to essentially cover our bills and just survive. Now we have a cushion and we have some padding and we created a foundation and we're able to directly touch people in such a simple way and help people with things. It's for kids. It's all for kids. And we just don't want any kid to ever be limited. Like one of the things we just helped this little girl, well, she's not little, she's like a 16-year-old girl whose cheerleading team made some huge competition. And the trip was like $2,500 and her
Mm.
parents couldn't afford it. And so we were able to help with stuff like that because a cheerleading team can't not take a certain person. So um anyway, it's just really cool to be able to do stuff like that and to give back in a way that I don't think I ever really thought about before. I created the space to do it, because it's not just about money. It's also about being able to see that there's a need and being able to like plan to do that, which takes brain space.
Mm. Man, that's powerful right there. That's powerful. Especially the giving back part, man. I mean, you're helping out people And you're doing, and I like that. You're giving, and it sounds like you're giving like kind of local, you're local giving that you could see an effect.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we want to be the people that when somebody hears of a kid who needs help with something, like we want them to call us and we want to just be able to like pick up the phone and give them a credit card number.
Mm. Yeah, I like that. I like that. It's kind of like, there's so many different charities, and okay, you want to round up, you want to give to this one. Okay, but you don't know you don't feel it as much, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and there's so much bureaucracy too. And that, paid you have to pay to salaries and stuff like that. And so why we created this foundation so that 100% of what we gave could go directly to people who need it. And even though a lot of them would probably get the help that they need, we are able to do it in such a quick and easy way. Most of the time, they don't even know. Like, we'll just hear about something and they'll give us a phone number. We call the dance studio or we call the school because their lunch account is overdue. Like, can you imagine being like a 7-year-old and being hungry and your lunch people are like, you can't get lunch today because your parents' account is overdue. Like,
Mm.
and I say, can you imagine? But that is what my childhood was like. So it's just like so cool to be able to do things for people without them even having to ask.
And what's your foundation called?
It's called For the Kids.
Wow.
Super, super creative, right?
That's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect.
Creativity is not my strong suit.
Straight to the point right there. That is cool. And you built it yourself, the foundation.
Yeah, I mean, it's super small. It's just, we just have our board is our old pastor and my cousin and me and my husband. And we just want to keep it as like anti-bureaucratic as we can.
Now, you're the first person to ever come on the show and talked about something like that, a foundation. Now, are there tax benefits to a foundation, forming a foundation?
Yes. Well, so there are rules about, 501(c)(3) status. First, you have to get that status from the IRS, and then you also have to maintain it. And you have to have a board in place and certain things depending on your state. Um, and I think we're pretty limited. Like once we hit like more than $10,000 contributed personally, our tax situation will change in terms I don't really know how because we haven't hit that yet, but I think next year we probably will, or this year rather, because I just did our last year's. So because you can't, there's so many ways you could do this wrong. Like you could just be sending money to a foundation and then doing whatever you want with it. So it's supposed to be pretty closely monitored. This last year is the first full year we've had it up and running. We started it in like November of 2022. So I'm not entirely sure what it's going to look like this year when we do our tax return and stuff.
Okay. And it's not the main reason you're doing it, of course. I'm just saying if it has tax benefits, that's just an extra cherry on top, for someone to do a foundation instead of just, just it's good, it's great always to give money, but if you could build a foundation and the money that was be going to taxes to the government, to the man, whatever, anyways, where it could go to help kids, it's a lot better because the government's going to
Yeah.
waste it.
Right. Yeah. You still get the typical tax write-off for it's just a charitable donation. You get the same benefits from doing that. But it's like we get sort of dual benefits. Like we get the benefit of the writing off the business income, and then we get the benefit of having control over where that money goes.
I love that. I love that. Well, this has been a great show. Erin, thank you so much for hopping on. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can check out my website, bcglobalinvestments.com. I have a real estate team. It's Erin Helle's real estate team. You can check a little bit out on my website too, but if you're interested in becoming a realtor or you already are a realtor and you're looking for a cool brokerage, please reach out. You can email me, Erin, erin.m.helle@gmail.com. And you can find me all over social media. I'm at the Erin Helle _investor coach on Instagram and the Erin Helle on Facebook. And I'm also on LinkedIn.
That's awesome. We'll get all that in the show notes. But one thing I notice things sometimes. You said your name gmail.com. and there's this whole, you know, if you follow Instagram, you got to have a business email. I'm like, man, you don't have to have that crap.
Nobody
I
cares.
people, nobody gives a damn. And I am starting to look at it the other way. I see someone out there doing business with the Gmail. I'm like, that's a freaking hustler right there.
Yeah.
They're not just playing business or pretending business. They're actually out there hustling. And I say that, and I have, you know, an email in my business, whatever. But I'm the Live Let Thrive Gmail. We still hit that hardcore, and I don't care. People don't care. We message with big wigs in the industry with our freaking Gmail. So whatever. Everybody
Yeah.
quit trying to be like everybody else and pay all this money for all
Yeah.
this crap you don't need. Just get out there and hustle.
Totally. And it's just another one of those things that takes up your bandwidth when your your personal, you know, your name and your birthday at gmail.com is going to do the same amount of, outcome, the same action's going to come of it.
Yeah, yeah. Long live the hustlers.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Erin, and we'll hop on and do another chat again. This is a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, take care. Live, let, thrive out.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Live, Let, Thrive. Be sure to tune in next week for all the latest in the world of Airbnb and all that entails. Bye-bye.